I wanted to bring today's topic to the podcast. We're talking about post-traumatic growth. A lot of us may have heard of PTSD, but post-traumatic growth, I'd never heard of this, and maybe you're like me as well. So this is something that we can actually, this model is something we can use when we're navigating the fertility journey. It can actually help for us to see actually a new path forward, and it can be really helpful as we're navigating a struggle, which we feel like we could be stuck in this struggle forever. But every struggle does have a beginning, middle, and end. So post-traumatic growth, we're going to talk about the 5 pillars, what exactly they are, and how you can implement this into your daily routine. So hope you enjoy, and feel free to leave a review on iTunes. I'm excited to announce that our online Mindfulness Fertility Series is starting Thursday, September the 26th. This is a 6-week online program that helps embrace your fertility journey with proven relaxation techniques and stress management strategies that help you regain control and cope with infertility in a much more positive way. Space is very limited, so hop on the waitlist to be notified first when registration opens. This program is a must if you have an IUI or an IVF coming up, and it's essential for anyone trying to get pregnant naturally. Go to FabFertile, FABfertile.com, and click on Shop, then Mindfulness Fertility Series to jump on the waitlist. That's FabFertile, FABfertile, and click on Shop, and then click on Mindfulness Fertility Series to jump on the waitlist.
There are things that you can do right now to be a better human and to move through any struggle with more ease than you thought possible. Don't be deterred. If you feel like you're having post-traumatic stress symptoms, you can still have post-traumatic growth.
Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Clark, and my mission is to inspire, motivate, and empower you. But most of all, I want you to wake up. So with functional medicine, we can discover what causes infertility and eventually reverse the condition. Today, I'm welcoming Dr. Maria Rothenburger to the podcast, and we're digging into post-traumatic growth and what we learn from the fertility journey. Maria T. Rothenburger, PhD, LPC, is a therapist and coach specializing in fertility and family building. When infertility reared its ugly head in her life, Maria says she went a wee bit crazy and subsequently experienced spontaneous joy, which she feels would not have been possible without infertility. Her doctoral research focused on post-traumatic growth and infertility versus PTSD. Due to that profound experience, and she has made it her life's mission to help others achieve the same. Though she still practices psychotherapy, her passion has become fertility coaching involving a 4-pronged approach or movement towards optimal fertility, which she talks about in the Miracles Happen Fertility podcast. Check out her website at drmariarothenburger.com. And before we jump into today's show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this to make sure you never miss an episode. Hey, Maria, excited to have you on the podcast.
Hey, Sarah, so glad to connect again.
Yeah, awesome. So if you could share with us your journey and how you came to do this work.
Oh yeah. Yep. Most people, right, have their own story to tell around why they came to do this. So mine, I'll keep it brief. It's a little bit of a long story, 6.5 years of fertility stuff and then moving on to adoption. We, my husband and I, we tried to conceive for a good year before seeking external help. We were diagnosed with unexplained infertility, which was, of course, exceedingly frustrating. Essentially, we went on to a reproductive endocrinologist and went through a couple of cycles before having what they call exploratory surgery to see if there's something going on. The doc saw something in a fallopian tube and on an HSG, and went in and found stage 2 at the time. I don't think they do stages anymore for endo, but it was stage 2 endometriosis, and went in, lasered stuff out or whatever, and I had a clean bill of health and did more cycles with no results. Basically, I went into, my focus is on emotional wellness and how that's tied to the body and all that. It's the work that I do. And I went into an absolute tailspin, psychological tailspin, became quite depressed and anxious and lived my life from that dark place, which I'm sure many listeners can relate to. What we ended up doing was pausing because our relationship was just completely annihilated.
Mm.
We did not become stronger because of infertility. We were absolutely dissolving. We were knocking on divorce's door, as I like to say. So, or I hate to say. So we paused for a while in our family making journey. Obviously, it was not a good time. We had to work on us. So we did that for a while. During that time is why post-traumatic growth came up for me, which is what we're talking about today, right? So I had a profound shift happen that I couldn't explain. And I remember the moment that it happened. We had been working on our relationship and our dog had died. And it was heart-wrenching, but also quite eye-opening because I realized how much time I had missed. At that point, it was 5.5 years of infertility, how much time I had missed paying attention to the good moments with my dog. And if you're a dog lover, you know that they become more than just like your companion or a pet. They're like your kid, especially when you're trying to conceive, right? It's like, so I lost my kid and I just realized that I missed out on so much of his life. And at that point, that was the turning point for me when I said, no more am I going to let infertility take over my life. This is bullshit. I am moving on. And I started doing things that fed my spirit, that fed my life in a way that I hadn't been able to do that for the last 5.5 years. So I started doing that. And then a few months later, we had some totsicles, as we like to say, right? We had some frozen embryos from our very first cycle. Our very first IVF cycle. And we went in to just do a frozen transfer because essentially I was ready to live child-free, but I didn't want to destroy the embryos. And I also didn't want to pay for storage forever. So we said, I'll just do another cycle. We did another cycle, and that was the very first time, the only time that I had gotten pregnant through third-party reproduction. Sadly, it didn't last, but that gave me a little bit of hope that what I was doing in terms of my psychological wellness and my emotional wellness was having a significant impact on my body. I was in that headspace. I call it my Zen space, where I was like, chill, whatever, man, whatever, I'm cool. I just want to like travel for the rest of our lives. I'm cool with it just being us. We were happy again. We were connected again. For 2 weeks, my husband was like, all right, that's cool. That's fine. And then 2 weeks later, he was like, never mind, I want to be a dad. So me being in my Zen state, I was like, all right, that's cool. Let's look at adoption, which meanwhile, by the way, 2 years before that, he was like, why don't we just adopt? And I was just not in that headspace. So we were at a completely different headspace at that point. We decided to pursue adoption, which is its own craziness. Because I was in this state of like, whatever comes my way, I know I can handle. I can do hard stuff. I've proven it, which is what I like to say to my own clients. You've proven you can do hard stuff. So move forward, man. So, and also I was like, just open to whatever came. Like I know that I can handle whatever comes. So bring it, the good stuff and the not so good stuff. The way our first son came to us was, I just think, a complete miracle. Through a whole host of craziness. We got a call one day saying, hey, we have this baby. Meanwhile, it takes a good year and a half to get matched with a baby. We had adopted overseas with Korea. It takes a good year and a half. And we got a call saying, hey, we have this baby. You have 24 hours to decide and 48 hours to take custody if you so choose. So there's a whole bunch of story in there that I don't need to get into right now. It's a lovely story that people can read if they want to on my blog, but it was miraculous. And it just set off a whole new wave of possibility in my own mind and has continued throughout the rest of our life, even beyond the fertility stuff. So
amazing. And how old is your son now? So you ended up adopting the little guy then from...
Yeah, we ended up adopting that little guy, and he's now 8. He was 18 months when he came home. He's now 8, and he has a little brother too, which is another miraculous story. And yeah, it's like It's really, when we talk about post-traumatic growth, it's more than, and we'll get into those details, but it's more than just a positive aspect of having gone through stuff. It's like this profound shift in perspective in life. And I can see it throughout everything. Again, not just through building families, but through career and relationships outside of the fertility world. And it's just been amazing. And it's why I do the work that I do. In short, that's how I came to do the work that I do.
These stories are never short, but yeah, this is thanks so much for sharing that with us, and that whole profound shift actually when you talked about when you're with your dog passing away, because I had both my kids with donor eggs, and before we were on a waiting list, and I kind of wanted, like most people want to have their family now, so I had to wait, and in that period I'm like, let's get a dog, and my husband's like, I don't want to get a dog, the responsibility. I remember, like, I didn't really cry about the donor egg thing, I didn't cry about any of that. But when he's like, I don't want to get a dog, I had a complete meltdown.
Yes.
And so we ended up, and then 18 months later, our daughter was born. So for me, that, yeah. And then you said that shift you had where you're like, wait a minute, life's passing me by, my relationship, all this is suffering. And then you had that shift. And then that's what we're going to talk about, post-traumatic growth. Yeah, and then finding your son and your other son. So yeah, amazing story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you did your PhD on post-traumatic growth. So I thought we would dig into that because I hadn't even heard of what that was. You heard of post-traumatic stress, like
right.
PTSD. I think we've all heard of that, but post-traumatic growth, like what is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'm so glad you're wanting to talk about this today. It's so great because, as I said before we started recording, I'm like, well, I could talk for days. So I hope you have time. So when I had that shift, I was like, what the hell just happened? I don't understand. What is this? Why am I feeling so great about life right now when this terrible thing is still going on, by the way? It wasn't like I had resolved my infertility. It was still going on, very much so. Because I just happened to be doing a doctorate at the time. I was like, I wonder if there's like some research around this. And at first I wanted to do my dissertation on mindfulness and how that helps with the healing process. But my advisors said no, because at the time mindfulness wasn't a buzzword. And I've really been out of shape. I know, right? I'm like, hey. But anyway, I'm so glad that I was able to do it on post-traumatic growth anyway. It's really great. So essentially what post-traumatic growth is that any shift in one of post-traumatic growth, the sciencey part, is looking at one of 5 domains of life. They look at these 5 domains, and we'll get into those later. But if you have any positive shift in any of these 5 domains, then you have experienced post-traumatic growth. What that means is that a very real threat has happened in your life. It doesn't need to be a threat of death, but obviously it could be. Anything in your life, a trauma is defined as something that is well beyond what you thought in your worldview could happen to you. And obviously infertility or any health crisis or any major, just significant, profound change could be considered a trauma. It's just something that your brain was like, whoa, I need to wrap my head around this. And it's just this ultimate sense of, I need to create safety now. I don't feel safe. So that's trauma. Anything that changes in your life for the better because of that is considered post-traumatic growth. So in a nutshell, I like to say you're a better human because of a hard experience. That's how I define it. You're a better human because of a very hard experience.
So can we experience this so for you were right in the middle of it. So obviously maybe they wouldn't answer my question here, but can you experience it while you're in the middle of it, or do you need to see something positive first? So for you, it sounds like you did experience it right in the middle of, oh my goodness, it's working.
Yeah. Actually, that little nuance there was really important to me when I was researching this, because I didn't understand how that could happen. I didn't resolve anything. Nothing was better. It's not like having a car accident and now you're not in the car accident. This was a chronic condition that I had not resolved. And I specifically went into the research looking at that because to me it was obvious. Well, people who have resolved their infertility are more likely to have some kind of growth experience. But I really wanted to know, what if you're still in it? What if this is still happening? And so my research was, I was looking specifically at women, and I wanted them to be in the middle of their journey, still experiencing their journey. Yeah. you can absolutely experience this shift in the middle of your or amidst your journey. And I looked specifically at age and number of years trying to conceive. Interestingly, younger people were more likely to experience post-traumatic growth, but the longer that you were trying to conceive, the more likely you were to experience post-traumatic growth. So it's really interesting. Obviously, I could still talk forever about it, but I looked at several aspects, including personality characteristics and things. But the bottom line is absolutely, you can experience growth while you're still trying to conceive.
Okay. Yeah. So that's encouraging for people listening, obviously. So you don't need to actually be at the end of this, because a lot of times here's you and I talking about after the fact and have our children. But yeah, so while you're in the middle of it. Now, how is post-traumatic growth different from resilience?
Resilience it's essential in living through the fertility process and any life challenge really at that. So it's basically one's ability to bounce back after a rough time, right? So the difference is that resilience brings you back to your baseline state. If this were a visual recording, a video recording, I would be able to show you. Imagine just like a horizontal line, just like hold up a pencil horizontally in the air, right? So that's like your baseline. Trauma brings you below that baseline. Resilience brings you back up to baseline. Post-traumatic growth, here's the difference, brings you up above your initial baseline. So you experience a change for the better above your normal baseline in order to create a new baseline. This is your new space. This is where you reside now on a normal day-to-day basis. So here's an example I like to give that's not fertility related. I have a really good relationship with my brother. I consider my brother to be one of the most beautiful humans on the planet, and I still aspire to be like him. When I look at his characteristics, he is kind and compassionate, unassuming. He doesn't judge people. If he does have judgy comments, he keeps them to himself. And he's just like this really kind, loving, gentle person to be around. And he's not a doormat. He's this beautiful balance of both. And that's what I aspire to. That's like the better pieces of humanity that I aspire to. So I might have some of those, but I hope to raise my baseline a little bit higher. I would use the word higher to match that, my brother's aspect. So that's just a little bit of an example that's not fertility related. So you raise your baseline a little bit more, these human characteristics that we aspire to. And post-trauma can bring you to that space. Resilience brings you back again to your normal baseline. Post-traumatic growth brings you above that.
Yeah, so I was reading about how there's certain characteristics, and you talked about these personality traits. So I've found openness or extroversion. Is that correct, or what have you found in the personality traits?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, now of course this is the research, right? And you're still an individual, so it does not mean that you have to have these characteristics in order to experience post-traumatic growth, because that's one that I happen to not have. I'm quite introverted. But yes, somebody who's extroverted tends toward post-traumatic growth. They tend to be more likely to experience post-traumatic growth. But I'm very introverted. So I don't know what that is. Perhaps, and there's this, this thing too about, and I'm not a personality expert, but they do say that there are extroverted introverts. I don't know.
And ambivert. That's me. I don't feel I'm totally extroverted, nor am I.
There you go.
In the middle.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, but I mean, none of these are set in stone. So if you feel like, oh man, I'm introverted, so now I can't experience post-traumatic growth, that's not the case.
And then what about openness? To me, I think like when I coach people, it's like if you don't believe in coaching and you're not even open to this stuff, it will never work. So with post-traumatic growth is an open mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, openness is one of the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth that gets better. So you can have a little bit of openness. So I like to call this true skepticism, right? Okay, so when you think of a skeptic, it's not the guy that's like, nope, you're absolutely wrong. Here's why. True skepticism is, hey, I don't subscribe to that yet, but I'm open to hearing it. I'm open to hearing what you have to say. Let me get information from you just so that I can mull it over, right? That's a true skeptic, where you're completely open to whatever, maybe not even completely, just a little bit open to what others have to say. So yes, openness lends itself to post-traumatic growth.
And then, so now if someone's still experiencing, if they're in the middle of it and they actually do have PTSD, at what point does post-traumatic growth, what point can that be introduced?
A post-traumatic growth can be introduced right now. Right now. Yeah. PTSD and PTG, post-traumatic growth, are not mutually exclusive. They can absolutely happen at the same time. In fact, I'm 6.5, 7 years post my infertility experience, and I still have triggers, right? I still have parts of my brain that are like, oh, stay away from that, right? That's not safe. They're part of the same concept, but they are not mutually exclusive. So you can experience both at the same time. There are things that you can do right now to be a better human and to move through any struggle with more ease than you thought possible. I mean, again, I still have those trigger points, and no matter what, the hard things that happen to you, like, I don't know, maybe you were on a stage when you were in 3rd grade and people laughed at you, and now being on a stage is still hard. Again, not fertility related. We could still have our brain saying, oh, that's not safe. Get down from that stage. But to say that you cannot have both at the same time is false. You can absolutely have both. So don't be deterred. If you feel like you're having post-traumatic stress symptoms, you can still have post-traumatic growth.
Okay, so let's dig into these main pillars. You talked about them at the beginning and sort of how you would use them with your clients and what it all kind of looks like.
Yeah. Right. So the first one that these are the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth that researchers look at. So the first one is personal strength. And I bet that the majority of folks that have dealt with infertility for a little while, even 6 months or so, could say this: if I can handle this, I know I can handle anything. And again, I like to say, hey, you've proven you can do hard things, right? You've proven it. So you can do this too. You can do whatever hard thing comes up. We hope for not hard things, but you can handle hard things. So personal strength is just the ability to, it's the idea or the notion that you are stronger than you ever thought you were. You can handle so much more than you ever thought possible because of this experience. The other one a second one we already touched on a little bit, and that's openness to experience. So I actually like to get a little playful with this. It's like that. It's a step a little bit beyond that skepticism thing, the true skepticism thing, where it's almost a little fun. Like, ooh, what else could happen? Like, you're getting curious. What would happen? Sometimes I'll use the analogy of, like, let's imagine that I gave you, I'm like a product developer, right? And I've just developed this new device, and there's a bunch of buttons on it and like apps and things, and I give it to you to try out. And your openness to experience is, oh, let me see what would happen if I push this button. And oh, what happens if I do that? Oh, that just happened. That's cool. That's what I mean by openness to experience. There's also a little bit of flavor in there around, well, stuff didn't go my way. Well, maybe life doesn't have to go by my plan after all. Maybe not. Let's just see. Let's just see what happens. So that's an openness to experience. Now, this is hard when you are experiencing trauma, because trauma is no, rein it in, control, control, control. I need to be safe. Right? So that can touch a little bit of nerve with when you're dealing with trauma. That is okay. It's okay. As you begin to resolve some of the trauma a little bit, again, even before you resolve your infertility, when you start teaching your brain you're actually safe, it is easier to become more open to experience and find some fun in that openness. The third domain is called relating to others. All right, so this is a big one in the fertility world, right? So like, relationships get really freaking hard when we're in the crux of the infertility beast. Things get awkward. They get really difficult with family members, friends, whomever, work people. This changes for the better in post-traumatic growth. It isn't like it used to be when it let's just say you had a healing experience with somebody. I had a healing experience with my husband. It wasn't like it used to be. It was better, so much better. Here's a story of or an example of a non-fertility related thing. I like to do that because sometimes we get so much in the depths of fertility related stuff that it's hard to see it objectively. So here's just an example. When I was when I was going through this post-traumatic growth process, I noticed I was living in New Jersey. That's where I met my husband. And he talks like this and he uses his hands all the time and he's very rough and, and New Jersey drivers, I'm sorry if you're from, especially northern New Jersey. New Jersey drivers friggin' suck, man. They are aggressive, so aggressive. And before I was experiencing post-traumatic growth, I was right in there with them, like flipping people off, screaming, honking my horn, whatever. Right? Yeah. I was doing that. Now, after this shift, I began to look at things objectively. Others experience a profound shift in the way they see other people. And I experienced that too. Infertility, here's the thing, infertility is not worn on the outside, right? Nobody knows our private hell unless we share it. And even then we tend to only touch on like surface stuff. An improvement in this domain relating to others means seeing others not for what's on the surface, but for what their private hell might be. We end up treating people with more respect and honoring them as if they were the tender souls that they are, right? That we all are. We're all just human at our core. We all want love. We all want belonging. We all want compassion. So what I started seeing, instead of this annoying driver cutting me off, flipping me the bird or whatever, I started seeing, oh, what if they have an emergency? What if there's somebody in their car that's having a heart attack? Or what if they're having a heart attack? Or what if they just got really terrible news about anything? What if they just had a failed cycle? We don't know. Millions of people are going through infertility. So I started asking myself that, does this matter enough for me to start chasing them down, honking my horn, flipping them off? Or are they maybe going through their own private hell and I should just leave well enough alone? And when I began experiencing this shift in relating to others, this particular domain, I started seeing option B, right? Like letting it go. They're going through their own private hell, just like I am.
Yeah, that's that shifting perspective and showing empathy. And yeah, I had the same thing in my early 20s. I literally encountered so many assholes on the road and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Who's the other asshole? It's me. And I remember like there's a line of traffic and a guy wanted to get in. I'm like, there's no way in hell you're getting
That's
in.
Right.
And now I'm like waving people in. People are waving me. I'm like, and it's all friendly. And I'm like, it was because I was in this very constricted and in my 20s. So I was going through infertility, trying to figure all this stuff out. And I was so like keyed up and pissed off.
Yep.
And now, knowing that it may not be infertility, but it could be something else going on in someone's lives. So
that's right.
That thing is really key.
That's right. And you know what else too? That doesn't stop at that one interaction. If you let somebody in, they feel a little bit of gratitude. They might not say, oh, I'm so grateful for that lady. They might not say that, but they'll feel it and then they'll pay it forward, right? It just spreads. No matter what you share, spreads. Mm-hmm. So that's the domain of relating to others. What are we on? Fourth domain is called appreciation of life. So I talk about this in my book, actually, my upcoming book, that I personally began experiencing life as if everything was a miracle. And actually, Albert Einstein is quoted as saying this, right? Super brainiac says this very fuzzy thing. He says, there are only two ways to live your life, as if nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. I appreciated every single thing that came my way. I began seeing things as true, just pieces of joy in my everyday experience. Many people who are threatened with death or who have a near-death experience will feel this way. There's so much gratitude for being alive that even the shit that comes our way is seen as an opportunity to experience the depth and the breadth that is life. For clarity, there's a richness. There's a richness in appreciating life. It doesn't mean, I also want to clarify, it doesn't mean that we only see all the good, right? That we wear rose-colored glasses or that we're eternal optimists. And even though it's not a bad thing to live that way, right? It's completely fine. Here's a real life example. appreciation means that when the dog pees on my freaking carpet again, I appreciate more those moments where he's simply cuddling in my lap, right? It's like the darkness accentuating the light, if you will. There's an appreciation for all of life, all of it, the darkness and the light.
I just recently watched a documentary. Well, it's actually a series on Netflix about the Central Park Five. Now You See Us, I think it's called. And so then they had the real men. These are the teenagers that were rounded up in the 80s and really were forced to give confessions that they had raped a woman in the park who was found raped and brutally beaten. And these were like 13, 14-year-old boys. And then they were in prison for 4 of them went to juvenile detention, and 1 went to an adult prison. Just the horrors and stuff that happened to them. And then years later, 4 of them were able to like really look back and like forgive. And there was one guy, he's like, you know what, I'm like a shy kind of introverted guy. Not to say this is the case for people, but he's like, and it was eating him up. He was not able to forgive. He was so angry at every single person. Other people, all the rest of them had found forgiveness, and you could see that they were like light and moving on. And everyone was like crying for this guy because he was completely broken by this.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of with those kind of really, really harsh experiences and stuff like that, but to be able to, the gratitude piece, the joy, which sometimes you hear the gratitude and that it could be like, oh my goodness, it's so whatever, but it is those small pieces every day to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to see that. I have not seen that.
So awesome. It's like, yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, it sounds amazing. And the idea is the other four guys, that they experience an appreciation for life because of the crap that happened to them, right? Without that, maybe they wouldn't have that experience or that appreciation, right? And that's part of, or a giant part of what PTG is that because of the hard thing that you're going through, you are experiencing this improvement as a human. Mm-hmm. So, thanks for that resource. I'm going to be watching that.
Yeah. What's our last one then?
Yeah, the last one is called Spiritual Change. And in my mind, I think that all of the domains are fundamental to spiritual change. For those that are not religious or spiritual, this applies to you too, by the way. At its core, spiritual change means developing meaning from the struggle. And to talk about another profound story like the one that you just brought up, there's a famous book called Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl. Mm-hmm. Dr. Frankl was a psychiatrist. He was a Jew placed in a concentration camp during the Holocaust. He developed a whole theory of humanity after surviving the Holocaust. And during his experience, amidst all of the tragedy and the inhumanity, he was able to find bits of beauty, which is amazing to read about. He recalls a time when, for example, he found beauty in a bowl of dirty water with a fish head in it, and that was given to them and his comrades for a meal. He found just this great meaning in his whole experience through being able to help people through his work after the end of the war. This is considered spiritual change. It's a meaning. There's purpose because of this experience. It can also, of course, mean solidifying religious beliefs or becoming more connected to the universe as well. Whatever language you would personally use, the idea is that you feel connected to something greater than yourself. So, for example, Dr. Frankl might say, it's my purpose now and my obligation to create this whole theory of humanity and to help people because I experienced what I experienced, because I have the personal experience and the knowledge. It's my duty. It's my meaning derived from this to help other people. Other ways that you might experience spiritual growth is just an awareness of your greater self or something outside of your actual physical existence. I mean, shoot, I could go on and on. The point is you feel a deeper sense of meaning, right? And you're able to honor the bigger picture inherent in this struggle, this huge struggle part of your life.
And I think a lot of people going through the fertility journey or infertility really potentially can get disconnected from this piece. I do this kind of wheel of life thing and ask people about, all aspects of their life. When it comes to spirituality out of 1 to 10, a lot of them are in a 2 or a 3, like very low. They've just lost almost lost faith and that, why is this happening? And they're in a very, very dark place. And then as they start to build and reinvigorate that connection, it then starts to permeate in all aspects of their life. But it's hard when you're going through this because, it kind of, all the joy and that is sort of sapped away from you.
It is hard. They either lost faith or they're pissed. Like,
why?
What the hell, God? Like, why are you doing this? Right? Like, what did I do wrong? There's a whole gamut there that people run on the spirituality thing. And again, as you said too, when this begins to shift, other areas of life shift too. And the researchers who look at PTG do consider spiritual change to be quite separate from the other 4 domains, but I've found in my work with people that they're very related. So, by the way, you can take the PTG inventory for free. The developers encourage the use of the tool, and I'll give you that link, before we or after we end the call, so that you can give that to people. But it's really useful to know where you are, and certainly you can look at the specific domains and say, okay, I can work on this particular domain if I want to be better. If you want to, if not, that's fine too. But it's really cool that they give it away for free. So
great. So we've got personal strength, openness to experience, relating to others, appreciation of life, and spiritual change. Then how would we start someone off then with some tips or strategies, or like how do we weave these into your daily routine?
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of nuance here, a lot of things that you can do in your life, but the very, very, very first thing that is all encompassing that I ask everybody to consider doing right off the bat is meditating. And this is why mindfulness was a big thing back then when I wanted to study, because I thought that that's what was going on. I began practicing mindfulness, and I actually I went into mindfulness kicking and screaming, I like to say, because I was like, I can't freaking meditate. My mind is just crazy. And I hated it. I hated every second of it. But because I was on this journey, and I'm also stubborn, by the way, I was like, that's it. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to prove that mindfulness doesn't work. Right. So that was my that's my goal. And I committed myself to 90 days of mindfulness meditation. It wasn't solid 90 days. I missed a couple of sessions or whatever. But after 90 days, I was like, oh, damn, this works. I'm starting to feel better. I definitely was not experiencing post-traumatic growth yet. I don't think. But what began happening, and this is why I encourage folks to do this, what began happening was that the trauma space that I was living in, constant triggers, constant tension, constant angst and worry and anxiety and depression, all of that, I think it became my norm. And I find that with my own clients that people are like, well, I'm anxious, but it's not that bad. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I'm at like a 4, when really they're at a 7 or 8 on their worst days, and maybe like humming at a 5 or a 6 most days. That's way too high. And that's where I was. So when I began to get quiet, I realized, oh my God. And this is why this is so hard for people, because they start realizing, oh shit, I am a ball of anxiety. I'm nuts. My mind is going crazy. And we just want to like run from that. That's the trauma. What we need to do is stay with that. What we need to do is be like, hi mind, hi running mind. I see you. I know you're there. You're trying to keep me safe. That's cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just going to sit still right now. What ends up happening is, just on the biological level, you start quieting the noise in your body. You start moving yourself out of fight or flight. You start engaging your parasympathetic nervous system so that you can chill, start sleeping better. You start feeling just more calm during the day, more focused, more able to concentrate on things. So just that alone is a healing experience, right? But then what ends up happening is that once you develop this awareness, how you're operating day to day, you start realizing, oh my God, those New Jersey drivers, I'm flipping them off all the time. I'm really I'm even like looking for them. I want to fight. You start becoming more aware of how you live your everyday life. So then so the first thing with mindfulness or with meditating, whatever meditation practice you choose to use, you can use, there's so many. I prefer mindfulness. You get quiet, your body starts calming, your day-to-day life starts calming because you are aware and you start redirecting yourself. Then comes really, really hard part, self-compassion. I find that people who are dealing with infertility are so self-judgy. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, they beat themselves up so bad. And I am not an anomaly here. I did the exact same thing. So what ends up happening is you start realizing how mean you are to yourself. And when we are mean to ourselves, we are mean to other people because that's just humanity. We project. That's what we do. We assume other people are thinking what we're thinking, so we respond as if they are thinking that. So you get quiet, you develop this awareness, and then you start realizing how mean you are to yourself, and you could begin working on that piece. All of this is just the beginning of moving toward post-traumatic growth. And you'll start seeing as you begin to make these internal changes that they culminate into realizing, oh my God, I'm so much stronger than I thought I was. Oh my gosh, let's see. I'm getting curious now. There's a gentleness in me now. I'm okay. I'm not trying to stay alive every second of every day. I know I'm safe. I'm open to whatever comes my way. Oh my gosh, my relationships with others are getting better. I'm more gentle. I'm more open to hearing what they have to say. I'm less judgy. I'm appreciating the stuff that's coming my way now because I'm not so caught up in all the crap that's been happening in my life every day. I'm not so concerned that something, or when's the next bad thing going to happen? I'm now appreciating that both things happen, the hard things and really good things. And I can look at both. Oh my gosh, I'm now more connected to my greater self. I'm now listening to my own intuition. I'm now trusting myself more. I'm now treating myself in a kinder way. I now understand, and I'm developing meaning around why I have to deal with this right now. You'll just start noticing with those changes that all those things come into play and post-traumatic growth begins to develop. It starts with meditation.
Yeah, I know. If that was something that for me, I was like coaching people to meditate, and I would sort of meditate sporadically. And then a couple of years ago, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Let's just do it. And then now when I don't do it, this is not about perfection. I'm like, oh damn, why am I feeling something's wrong? Oh, you fool, go and meditate. And that just kind of grounds me. And I always, for me, I'm like, oh, I'm not stressed. I'd be like a 3 or a 4. But I know looking back when I was dealing with this journey that, I was super stressed and I was like anxious. And why the heck am I like ready to kill people on the road? And I'm always in a hurry and like just, pissed off. And then the whole self-judgment, and we don't even know that we're, saying these awful things to ourselves. And it's being aware of it. But I think it does. And for me, it's been very grounding to start with that meditation. And so just circle back to that for a little bit. So, and what did those 90 days look like for you? What were you doing in the morning? Just kind of give us a little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still do the exact same thing. The very first thing I do, so I wake up and then I pee. That's the very first thing, if I'm being honest. But then I encourage a meditation space, and it doesn't have to be like this ashram style space. I meditate on my bed, even though bed should be for sleeping. I find it to be most quieting. You can meditate anywhere. You can meditate at a bus stop if you want. It doesn't matter. But go to that space every single time because your brain begins to associate that space with, it's meditation time now. So I set up my pillows in a certain way. I sit in the same way on my bed. Bed's already made, and I sit. I don't lay down. And I meditate for 30 minutes. Now, the style of meditation sometimes changes. So this morning I just did a straight up mindfulness, present moment awareness meditation. I like to do guided meditations a lot too, because I like different teachers' takes on things. And so I get, there's my openness to experience. I'm like, ooh, let's see what pops up, right? So I'm going to open up my Insight Timer app. There's a resource for you. And I'm going to see what pops up. And I'm going to pick one. So I'll do some guided meditations and, pardon me, I do a lot of just straight up present moment awareness, mindfulness, breath work kind of meditation. So it's 30 minutes. But I didn't start out with 30 minutes in those first 90 days. I started out with like 2 minutes, literally like 2 minutes. Sometimes people can start with 30 seconds of just breath work and be done. It really is starting where and pushing yourself just a little bit so where it's a little bit uncomfortable and then, backing off. So I started out with like 2 minutes and then ended up most of the time like 10 minutes a day, not even every day. It was most days of the week for 90 days. So now it was always in the morning. And now I'm doing the same thing in the morning. And I'm actually quite mindful throughout the day too. That's another thing that I've added is just stopping, like pausing, being aware of how my body is. Like I check my posture. I check if there's a frown on my forehead. That's kind of a big one. Just noticing if there's a furrow. And when you relax that furrow, it changes your whole disposition, just changes everything. So I'll smooth the furrow, calm my face, and you'll notice a big change there. But so I check in with myself about 2 or 3 times a day just to be mindful in the present moment. But the actual formal sitting mindfulness meditation in the morning, for 30 minutes.
Yeah, that whole mindfulness piece, I find when I take my dog for a walk, there's sometimes a lot of stuff going on in my mind. I'm like, okay, you just walked for 10 minutes and you were not even with this dog. And she's just enjoying the smells and having such a great old time. And so she is like a reminder to me, like, wait, bring it back. Like, look at especially in the summertime here in the Toronto area, it is gorgeous. And just being outside every day, I love it. So that's kind of those mindful walk.
Yes. Our dogs are really good teachers, aren't they? Oh my God.
And then so after the meditation piece, moving towards the growth side of things, anything else to do after that? Or
that would be moving into producing your awareness and really getting self-compassionate. And that's actually, you were going to be asking about resources. I have a resource to share on that. You can take I like quizzes and like inventories because I have a big like woo-woo spiritual side, but I definitely like to ground myself in research. So there's a huge name in the field of self-compassion. Her name is Kristin Neff. And on her website, she has a self-compassion quiz that you can take. And you can see, actually, she breaks down self-compassion into different components, similar to how PTG is broken down. And you can look at where you need to improve on your self-compassion. So I suggest that folks take that quiz. I'll also send you that link. So the first skill to use is the meditation, and then you'll start noticing, I'm more aware of this, and this in my life. And then self-compassion would be the next thing that I would suggest folks work on. This is all inner work. It does have an outward manifestation, but it's a lot of inner work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Kristin Neff, how do you spell her last name?
Kristin, and her last name is N like Nancy, EFF like Frank.
Perfect. So a self-compassion quiz. Any other a book or website or an app or a documentary, anything you want to recommend or that you're obsessed with, that you're loving?
Geez, how do I narrow it down? My husband's like always asking me not to buy any more freaking books.
I know.
Yeah. So definitely the one that I mentioned before, Viktor Frankl. If you have to be in the headspace to read it, obviously, because it's about the Holocaust, but it's quite uplifting as well. His book is called Man's Search for Meaning. Kristin Neff's website is selfcompassion.org. That's self-compassion.org. And then I'll give you the PTGI inventory, the post-traumatic growth inventory. I'll give you that free website. Obviously, my own website, drmariarothenberger.com. But I think one of my very favorite books that I always go back to over and over and over again is called The Way of the Fertile Soul. And that is by Randine Lewis. Mm-hmm. She is really big name in the Chinese medicine part of fertility, and she's excellent. She, I think her website is called Fertile Soul. Actually, I haven't looked up her website in a bit, but I can find that and send that to you as well. But her book, The Way of the Fertile Soul, is so what ends up happening, honestly, when I work with coaching clients or even therapy clients, is what they find is that the skills that they're using they go well beyond fertility.
Yes.
They just continue on for the rest of your life. And so when I talk about fertility, I'm talking about the fundamental, the crux of fertility is creativity, creating your life, creating the things that you want to see, manifesting the things that you want to see. So Randine's book is very similar to that idea. So The Way of the Fertile Soul is more about creating the things that you want to see in your life. And certainly about creating babies too, but and fertility. But her skills and the things that she talks about are about life in general as well. So I love that book. I go to that book all the time.
Awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. And success story you'd like to share? Anything you'd like to share with us?
Geez. How do I narrow this one down? I know. When I saw that question you sent me, I was like, oh man, who am I going to choose? Because I think, a lot of these stories are similar in that there's pain and then the awareness of the pain and then using skill to change, transform, and transcend that pain, and then the ultimate miracle. And the ultimate miracle does not need to be a baby in one's arms. It could be choosing to live child-free, because that's exactly how I felt at the end when I was experiencing this post-traumatic growth. I was really ready to just live. I just wanted to live with or without a baby. I was great living child-free. It was a celebration. That's what I mean by creating miracles, because there's just this profound shift in how we perceive life. But the one story that I thought of that still it's ongoing in a good way is a donor egg story, actually. So you can likely relate. This young woman came to see me, very, very type A, ducks in a row, lists, color-coded bento boxes, like everything controlled, right? That's how, and she had a career that really resonated with that part of her personality. She was just so great. And this is a lot of what people go through in the fertility world, is that they have ducks in a row and like, hey, I have this goal. Let me do step 1, step 2, step 3. Voila, I will have the goal. And fertility doesn't work that way, right? So she was really, really struggling, right? So when she came to see me, she's married to a man, and they were having some relationship struggles too, and just didn't know how to move past that. Also, they were doing treatments at the same time, which, messes with people's emotions because of all the hormones and things. So they were a mess. And she started doing some of the work that I talk about. She's one of the ones that's like classic, oh my God, I'm so hard on myself. And I did not know that I didn't need to be so hard on myself. And she began to make those very real changes that I just talked about, being way more compassionate toward herself. Here's what people fear. People fear being complete loosey-goosey and not ever getting anything done ever again. That's not what I mean at all. I mean balance. I mean absolute balance. So that means being accountable to yourself, but not being a jerk to yourself when you're not able to complete something, right? She was able to find that balance, and you could see that things started changing in her life because she started setting limits with other people too, and saying what she needed with other people too. And people around her kind of flipped out at first, but then they realized, oh, this is the new her. So this is like this shift in relating to others. She began to have a very different relationship with others, and those that didn't feel good to her, or that she felt she was giving too much of herself, it was sort of one-sided, she would cut that relationship off. It was a really cool thing to see this shift. What was happening for her fertility-wise was more angst around not being able to conceive with her own eggs, and moving on to a donor cycle. And I remember this day because it was an absolute amazing shift for her. She got a couple of donor profiles, and she was beside herself around choosing, oh my God, how do I choose a donor? This is crazy. I promised myself I wouldn't choose the first one. But this one is so great. And I said, the one that you're feeling really good about, you're saying is your first profile. And she's like, well, yeah. I said, it's not your first profile. It's just the one that you first looked at. I said, you got the other one first. And she was like, oh yeah. Huh. Okay. So then for some reason that created this shift in her around, let me be open to the other one too. So she felt really good about the first profile she looked at. Then she looked at the one that came over her email first, and she was like, oh, it doesn't feel as good. She started really paying attention to her intuition. And this is what you'll notice as you begin to work on meditating and awareness exercises and self-compassion. You'll start tapping into your intuition and really trusting it more. Because we ask ourselves, is that really true? Is that really right? Nah, I'm just like fooling myself. But really, our intuition, our heart space is saying, this is the answer. It's an immediate, crisp, clean knowing. It's not, you're not mulling it over. Well, let me recreate this and see, let me recalculate and see if I did that right. That's cerebral. Intuition is very heart space. She got into her heart space and she had a knowing. This profile, this is the one. This is the one that I need to move forward with. So that was like a shift for her. And she ended up having a very successful egg retrieval and transferred. And I now get photos of her baby every holiday. So what I mean by it's still ongoing is that I still get to see the joy, right? I still get to see not just in having parenthood, but the shift in her life that she's able to trust herself more. Her career changed because she was able to trust herself and know that wasn't for her. What she was doing wasn't for her. She started changing things in her marriage. She started changing things in her in-laws, in relationship with in-laws that was so hard before too. Like she made all these giant changes and it was all stemming from the fertility struggles. But in the end, it just affected every part of her life. So it's a good success story.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that, especially the part about the intuition and being able to trust that. And we all have intuition. We don't get
Yep.
You just need to listen. Okay, so you have got a fertility meditation kit, which people can access. They can go to page.co. This is, I'll have the link in the show notes. So it's page.co/AQ or AG. Oh my goodness. I think I'll put that in the show notes.
I need to rename that, don't I?
Or something. What is that? My own thing here. But anyway, so it's a fertility meditation kit, and how can they, and what do they get for that?
So in the kit is top 5 reasons why meditation is essential for your fertility. It's just a little e-booklet to read through and get some starting meditation tips. And then they get 2 free meditations to start with. One's called I Am a Mom, which is a manifesting meditation to get into that headspace of you're already a mom to that baby you want to bring forward or that child you want to bring forward. And the other one is about actually starting to cultivate that self-compassion. So it's called a meta meditation, which is loving kindness. Yes. And self-compassion is part of it, but there's also compassion for others too. The people that you love in your life, the people that you hate in your life, whatever, everyone. Because everyone deserves passion, right? There are 2 meditations. And then there's another little worksheet on there that folks can work through to work through some hard times. Yeah, it's a great little starter kit for meditating if you find it hard to do so.
Great. So the Fertility Meditation Kit, we'll have the link in the show notes. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on and sharing about this topic. I think probably like myself, other people haven't heard of it. And it's just such a really cool way of looking, of actually navigating this journey and having some tools and some help to get to make our way through it. And as you say, you can still access this while you're in the middle of it.
You bet. And thanks so much for wanting to bring that subject to light. I think it's wonderful to pay it forward. So thank you.
Hey there, I regularly speak with 5 to 10 couples per week who are struggling to have their baby. And although we want to help everyone, we only have 2 spots available per month to work with us. So the Supercharger Fertility Discovery Call is for action takers and really people who are ready to move forward so they can finally have their baby. And if you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. So if you're seriously considering working with us, go to FabFertile, FABfertile.com and click on Book a Free Call. Then you'll be all booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. That's FabFertile, FABfertile.com, and click on Book a Free Call. The Get Pregnant Naturally podcast, including show notes and links, provides information with respect to healthy living, nutrition, lab testing, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified physician for medical advice and always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.